persistence, and consistency are really key. You can do all the right things. You can check all the boxes. You can make great music, make great social posts, make good friends in the industry, get an agent. You can do all this and still not get results you're happy with. Sometimes it takes just doing all of those things over and over and over and over again.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Headliner Mindset Podcast. Today's guest is a melodic bass producer who's signed to Ofelia Records, Seven Lions Records label. He's recently dropped his second album with them and has been keeping his tour schedule packed, headlining shows and playing the biggest festivals all over the country. This is Trivecta.
Yo, what's up, man?
My man, welcome. Stoked to have you here. We were just chatting before we started recording about how's it been one of those days for us. We had to get through some traffic, we had to get through some technical difficulties, but we're fucking here, bro. And I'm really excited to dive in.
I mean, it almost kind of feels like sometimes live sets are sometimes like this. Sometimes if you have an early hiccup, it kind of puts you in a mindset where you're kind of like, you know what? All right. It kind of loosens you up right away. So I feel like we've already started our whole thing with that now.
Yeah, it's like, what's the worst that could happen? I've already stumbled over the roadblock, you know? Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
That's a good point. I kind of want to just fucking dive right into the deep end because you are a full-time artist. You are living the dream. You're playing shows. You said you just got a headlining tour that you're starting. You just dropped an album on Seven Lions label. I mean, like, what a dream label for so many people. I know this is such an open-ended question, and we can spend the next hour answering it, but what did it take to get there?
Yeah, you aren't kidding with that being open-ended one. Well, I'll give my disclaimer first to everybody. This isn't my normal voice. With this at Escape this weekend, I certainly lost it. Yesterday was a disaster, so I'm doing my best. I'll be clearing my throat a bit.
But you got that like sexy kind of scruffy post festival, you know, where you're like, I sound a little fucking manly now. You know?
I was doing my Emperor Palpatine impression this morning. It works perfect. Yeah. These are ideal circumstances. But anyway, totally. What does it take, man? What I've found it takes is, I would say in the broad strokes of it are keeping your eye on the ball, staying focused on what inspires you, and adapting to meet the challenges as they keep coming and staying persistent. That's my basic broad stroke answer, just depending how we want to dive in.
Well, I really like that you said keeping your eye on the ball and keeping your eye on the ball in terms of what inspires you rather than keeping your eye on the ball of what's happening in the scene, what's happening in the industry, right? So I love that's where you took that, actually. So tell me a little bit more about following that inspiration.
Yeah, sure. And I think to your point, both of those things are important, but I almost want to say, I mean, at least in my experience, the first thing you said, keeping your eye on the ball of what inspires you, is probably most important. There are people almost radically in that train of thought. Rick Rubin is a good example, who says, in his opinion, the audience, their opinion comes last. And Jake Kill the Noise, he's one of my favorite sort of minds that I riff off a lot. And he once said that the little voice within you that tells you what you like and what you don't like and throws you creative ideas, the muse, some might call it, it will keep speaking to you, but the less you listen to it, the less it'll talk to you, you know, until it just shuts up eventually forever. And I don't think it's a black and white thing. I think it's kind of a practice, practice learning how to listen to that voice. I mean, I've been working on it myself, and, I've gone through phases where I'm like, damn, what do I even like anymore? So then you get a burst of inspiration. You're like, oh my God, that's what I like. It's been here all along, and I think staying connected with that sort of compass of taste is just so important.
Yeah. So a little sidebar, when I was checking out your stuff and going through a lot of your like Instagram content, there were two things in there that I saw that were really cool. I just want to ask you about. When you said you're kind of questioning what you even like right now, you coined the term, what was it, like folk bass or something?
Yeah.
Folk. Yeah. Was it folk bass? Yeah. Did I get that right? Yeah. Yep. So tell me about that folk bass. I'm not seeing a lot. It seems like you're creating your own little lane over here. What's folk bass?
Yeah. And it wasn't even like some crazy, like super hyper intentional thing. I was in a phase around when the pandemic started, maybe give or take a year. It's maybe 2019 through 2020. Where it felt like melodic bass, which was kind of the world I was in, had, especially with like Millennium going to sort of pop space, and
Yeah.
a lot of us were trying to copy the same couple artists. And it was kind of like, all right, if this genre wants to move forward, yeah, it's sort of back up against the wall. Like if I want to do anything forward thinking, create my own lane, I need to kind of stop focusing on what else is going around me and start thinking, okay, how can I dig in and take what it is that I like that maybe other people aren't doing, and maybe that I might be sort of uniquely poised to bring to the table. And I think taste plus skill set kind of really come into play to interact there. And for me, I've just always loved really like cozy sounding folk music, you know, like of Monsters and Men, your Mumford and Sons, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so like I started just trying to be like, all right, look, I mean, they're not too far away. They're both very feelsy kinds of music, like melodic based music and like folky stuff. They're also very immersive. They both kind of take you somewhere. So like, all right, you know what? Let me start trying to figure out what I like about this other kind of music I'm listening to so much and try to work it in. And in doing so, it started to kind of create its own sound. And I don't want to do the stomp, clap, hey, folk music that's like really cheesy. It was all about taking the sort of underpinnings of other parts of it and putting it together with melodic bass. So yeah.
You know what you just said about that combination of taste and skill set really stands out to me, because it's kind of like if you don't have the skill set, you can't really translate your taste in the first place, right? I feel like that's like where a lot of people are probably at, where they're like, I'm still just developing the skill set of like actually getting good at these tools, right? Where, you know, I might have this, like right now I'm like, man, I really want to start a fucking drum and bass metal band. Like I have the vision for it. Like it fucking just works perfectly, but I'm like, I don't have the skill set to produce, you know, at like a sub-focus level drum and bass, you know? But yeah, here, that just brings up something I haven't really thought of that much, you know? For you, what would you recommend in terms of like really just developing that skill set? How did you get yourself to a place in your skill set where you actually can have that playfulness with your taste and actually really incorporate it?
Man, I love that you said playfulness, because you almost can't get playful when you're exasperated and really you can tell even when a DJ starts to get playful when they're locked in. And it's usually not the beginning of the set. It's usually once they start flowing. You need to be in rhythm with almost anything to kind of get playful. And I think that in this case, that requires really developing a skill set before you can kind of toss little bits of it here and there for fun. And that to me is, like you said, playful. That's where some of the best stuff happens. I think it takes, like for me, the melodic bass stuff, like the foundation was already there because I'd spent so long in that space. And then it took me doing a deep dive, and I'd always highly recommend that. It was like, okay, if I want to get into this folky music, I made a whole playlist of songs that were really inspiring me and tried to figure out everything I liked about what worked about those and try to sort of cross-pollinate. I noticed a lot of motifs, even quarterly, like a 1 to a 4 to a 1 again, like as far as on the music theory side, or like how the guitars were recorded. I noticed a lot of them weren't going for, you know, a certain type of guitar sound. They're going for a different type and so on and so forth. And all these little things, then you start figuring out, all right, which parts of this don't I like? Which are the parts of it that make it a little cheesy? Maybe I don't want that, you know? And if you really take a deep dive and dig into a certain sound, then you can come back and there were a lot of times where I made really clunky combinations of folk and melodic bass. There were a lot of tries. There's like, okay, this doesn't really work with that. But, you know, you keep trying in different combos, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, but it sounds like you really went in and studied. Like you said, you took a deep dive.
Yeah.
So to like approach that, like I really like that of like, yeah, go study it, right? Go take a deep dive into this thing that you want to learn and pick it apart and look at it from all different angles and figure out like what works and what doesn't work.
Live in it, get immersed by it. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I would say that it's important for people to also do that with the business side as well. Sure. Like I do coaching. I consider myself a life coach, but a lot of people come to me for like business coaching as well, specifically working with DJs and artists. And I've been in this space for, I don't know, 15, 16 years or something. Yeah. And a lot of times there's people that have spent thousands and thousands of hours of learning how to make music, you know, and you're just fucking neck deep in Ableton and you're watching all the tutorials. And then I just realized, I'm like, you haven't spent zero time doing a deep dive in the business and learning how do you actually get this out. So was there a point for you where you had to kind of make that deep dive into the business side and like, were you like digging into that as well? Or did you just get fucking lucky and
Yeah,
have a
no,
hit song and everything just worked out that some people think
definitely.
is what's going to happen to them.
Yeah, no, definitely the former. It's definitely been a slow grind of things working over time. And from doing exactly what you said. Yeah, for the business side, I mean, it's hard to be great at both. You know, it's like a pitcher. It's such a specialized skill set that they're usually not great hitters unless you live in LA. You're familiar with probably one guy who is. But besides that, you know, a lot of people who are very like artistic minded are not always very good on the business side. So it does take a dedicated sort of focus. For example, like I think each project I do, especially the album stuff, is where I really dig in and try to level up on the business side because I have more of a cohesive product to push. That's not just, hey, how am I putting out one song? So like, for example, on this last album, I made it a point to get the album done, like at least close to done, a month before it was supposed to be done. And that made it so once I turned it in and I couldn't touch it, I had about a month where every day I would wake up and I couldn't go to studio because I know that I won't naturally just think business. I won't naturally wake up and start thinking business. So what I did is I forced myself to like, okay, well, now the music's in and I can't do anything for a month here. I would be like, okay, I need to work on this. I want to work on that little, so, okay, I guess we can work on the business side. That's all I had to work on. So I'd wake up and I'd do these Google Docs. So I would look at what other artists were doing from a business side that worked and start to sort of compile a whole list of strategies, sort of what songs those would work for, save Instagram posts into different folders of things that I'd see. Oh, maybe I could take that kind of post and do that for one of my songs. That did well for this guy, you know, and then try to reinterpret those ideas into the space that I'm in, you know, and say, how does this work for my music? And I think also a big thing is surrounding yourself with people. As I've grown the project, I've been able to bring people in, especially like the financial side of the business side, which will never be a strength of mine. I was able to bring in a good agent, a good manager who can negotiate and things like that, you know?
Yeah, I love hearing that though. Just the fact that you sat down and you studied the landscape of like what are other artists doing and let me look at social media and like get some inspiration from there. And you even had folders and everything. Like I don't think that a lot of artists are doing that. And for everyone listening, like take fucking notes because maybe you're not even at that phase yet. Like maybe you still just need to be working on the music and developing that skill set. But if you are releasing and you're putting out your tracks, have some systems and some folders and take some deep dives into learning the game. You know, I think that's an important like mindset to have. So it's
dedicate time to switching gears and working on making sure even if it's not a strength. I honestly think if you just dedicate some time, every X amount of time to focusing on the business, it'll probably put you ahead of a lot of guys already just by doing that.
Oh yeah, 1,000%. Take me back to when you went full time, like going from, I'm making bleeps and bloops in my bedroom, you know, doing this production thing to like, oh no, I'm actually like, this is my career. And you actually like went full time with it.
It was scary. I've been teaching guitar for 8 years. That's how I was making my money, that and like maybe about $1,000 a month on just passive income from just my releases that I had on streaming and whatnot. And coming out of the pandemic, when all the shows came back, I had picked up a good bit of momentum online. And when the shows came back, a couple shows went really well and so on and so forth. And eventually I was able to attract the attention of bigger management, bigger agency. And they said, Sam, you know, I think this is probably time to make that jump, you know. And I don't remember if they said it first, if I said it, but that was kind of the consensus. And I had to quit teaching. I had to say goodbye to about 20 students at one time and take that little leap. And it was crazy at the time. Now I'm like, I would have zero time to do any of the teaching right now with how busy it's gotten. But that was a challenging transition for sure.
And you said you had gotten enough momentum though to feel like it was ready. So like, what was that?
I don't even know that it felt ready, but it felt like I was at the point where I don't think I just couldn't do both anymore. And it was like, if I want to make more progress on the music thing, I'm going to need to free up more runway here. And so, no, I think I misspoke there. It didn't feel ready. It felt like I had to, or it wasn't going to go anywhere. And it was the same thing with when I did my first headline tour. I was like, guys, I've no history in some of these markets. How in the hell am I supposed to go headline? It's probably 8 months after I quit. And I was like, I definitely am not ready. And in certain markets, I probably wasn't. But my team said, Sam, like, now's the time. Now, at some point, you have to assert that you have to make that jump, you know?
Yeah. And I think there's something really powerful energetically when you just take that leap of faith and it's like, all right, bitch, I'm all in. Like, we're fucking doing this. And it's like the universe sees you acting with courage and then rewards you for taking that leap of faith, you know? But I think that, yeah, for anyone that's listening right now, I think there's a handful of people that are getting to that point, right? I know someone's listening to this right now, and it's like, there is something about the leap of faith. It was the same thing with me for coaching. Like, I was coaching kind of on the side as like my little side hustle, just learning, and did like a coaching certification. I had little clients here and there, and started making a little bit of money. And then for me, I can't actually take full credit for wanting to go full time. I was in that limbo phase of like, am I ready? I want to save up a little bit of money, have a little bit of a cushion. And then I actually got let go from my job. And so then it was like, that was the universe pushing me off the cliff. But there's just this thing where you just kind of figure it out. You know, like once you take that leap, it's just like, all right, well, now I have to swim. Now I mean,
don't you find that you think of things differently when your feet are dangling and you're no longer walking anymore?
Yeah, it's almost just like an identity, you know. You're like, oh, I'm not a part-time artist anymore. I'm a full-time artist. And so when you actually own that identity, you step into it, you just show up differently, naturally.
The whole thought process changes.
Yeah, 100%. So you had like a team and a manager at that point, though. So shows weren't happening for a while, but you had a team at that point.
Yeah, I've been through a couple teams over the years, and all of them were great at the time that I was at. And you know, ultimately, your needs and everybody's needs change, and everybody adapts, and you sort of will move on with different groups of people that feel appropriate at the time. And I just moved into a new team, and new management, and new agency. And yeah, I think that was towards the end. It had to have been right before the shows started. I think it was probably a couple months before the shows really started coming back. I had just done a couple festivals, and like it was clear that some of the momentum I really focused on building online during the pandemic was translating to the shows. So that's when everybody sort of took notice, and from there just kind of kept moving.
Yeah. So what were you doing online to create some of that buzz and that momentum?
Before, I was playing shows originally in the mid 2010s. I was just producing, and that's where the Trivecta thing started. And I was releasing on Monstercat, and the big YouTube channels were picking it up. And then I started playing shows. When the pandemic started, I was like, oh shit, we're kind of back to my space again here. We're kind of back online again. And like the whole TikTok thing wasn't real big back then or anything. It was just kind of like a lot of guys whose whole job, their whole identity was just throwing parties every night. I think a lot of them were kind of in a position where it's like, oh shit, what do we do? Because we're only sort of in person. And I had sort of learned to do the in-person thing over the last few years, but my foundation was more talking to fans online. So I was like, all right, we're coming back. We're going to leverage this. So I built a Discord, and the Discord thing really popped off. I started actually Twitch streaming when I was producing music. And I think some of them are still on YouTube, where I was just like, I would just let the stream run and just work on songs in the studio and talk to fans. Sometimes that'd be cool. I would just, communicate and try their ideas and so on and so forth, and do question and answer sessions. And then when I put out the EP, which was like the first bit of, it was the Everyday EP, it was like the first bit of folk bass, and that's when I was really able to use the internet, the sort of mouthpiece I had at the time, to communicate to the fans the intentions behind what I was doing musically, communicate the thought process behind the development and the sound. So all that kind of created a little bit of a storm where when shows came back, I had a much tighter knit community.
Yeah, I love that you were comfortable with the online space and embraced it. Like you said, that was your mouthpiece. And you focused on leveraging that to build your community. This is something that I think comes up a lot that we talk about on the podcast, is just there's a lot of times just sort of an adversity to social media in general, right? Sure. But I love that, like, you also, you weren't just doing silly TikTok dances, right? I think that's where a lot of people feel the resistance. I literally just had a coaching call with a metal band that potentially wants to work with me, which is so fucking sick. I would be so stoked to do that. Yeah. But that was their big thing. They're just like, we don't want to like be inauthentic and like do all the dumb shit we see people doing,
Of course.
So, and I totally get that. But seeing how there's other areas, like just, getting on Discord, using Twitch, really great platforms for building community. But overall, what I see, I think the biggest starting point is just literally your mindset around social media and the online space in general. Like, you didn't resist it. You were like, oh, cool. Like, I can go back to this place and let's jump in, as opposed to fighting it tooth and nail. It's like, oh, I don't want to be an influencer. I don't want to have to do this stuff. That's the big kind of limiting belief that I see a lot of people get caught up in. It's like, I don't want to have to do this stuff.
Sure. Yeah. I feel like, to be fair, it was a little bit of a different time too then, because this was before social media over the last, couple of years has become so rewarding. It's become so focused on sharing content that people will just sort of virally just share with each other, it's harder to maybe get community driven authenticity going. It's not impossible at all. But I think back then when this all happened, it was easier for me to be like, because I always lean on the authenticity side too. So it was like, I was like, oh, cool, I'll just start Twitch streaming. And people were like flocking to Twitch. People were flocking to Discord. And now
especially at that time, that was the pandemic. So everyone was just stuck inside and like looking for cool shit to do. So
exactly. Now we're in a spot where like a lot of artists are struggling with the type of thing that works. The authenticity isn't getting as rewarded as much unless you find like a really clever spin. And it's been a struggle point for me as well, putting out an album and watching as things don't get the clicks they would have before, because it's not something that the algorithm recognizes as something that a bunch of people are sharing with strangers. It's like, well, I'm not necessarily trying to do that right here. I'm trying to show my fans that I'm putting out an album. I don't want to hide that messaging in some sort of code behind some viral clip, So it is challenging. But to your point, yeah, man, like it is a game that we do have to play, and we all do have to kind of, I guess, discover our own voice with that. And I brought a team on myself to help with exactly what you're talking about, help sort of come up with ideas for social media that can at least keep things churning. Because you're right, you can't really fight it right now. It's challenging to a degree.
Yeah. It does bring up a good point, though, as well. I know there's like a generation of artists where things were different. You could put a fucking remix up on SoundCloud and just pop off. It really has only been the last couple of years that huge shift towards social media has become, it's always been prevalent, but now it's feeling a little bit more. There were just easier ways to kind of pop off and blow up before. So and that's the truth, is like, it's always going to change though. It's like the landscape is always going to change. 5 years before that, it was different. 5 years before that, it was different too. So just like keeping up with where things are at is important, I think.
Isn't that the challenge? Because we started this conversation talking about, you had mentioned how important it was what I said about keeping your eye on the ball as far as your own intuition. But when you're focused so deep within yourself, it's hard to do exactly what you're saying, which is such an important thing to do, which is keep an eye on sort of how things are moving at the same time. It requires you to look at a million things at one time to make in this industry.
Yeah, it's wild. I kind of use duality as a real foundation of my coaching. It's just the duality of whether that's like the energetic spectrum of like masculine and feminine energy, or just the duality of being an artist, but also being a producer. I look at being an artist as that's the intuitive Rick Ruby flowy side, but also that's the taste side, right? But then also being a producer is having that technical skill set. Or being an artist, but also being a business owner. It really is the integration of both and of all of it. It's interesting because you do have a team. I think in a perfect world, it would be set up so that an artist can really just focus on their zone of genius, and your manager who's really going to like run the business for you. It seems though that even with a manager and you got a team, it's still like you can't just be in the studio.
No,
right?
You couldn't be more on point. As going back to Jake Kill the Noise, he once said that you are the sort of central nervous system of your whole project, and every decision, every idea, it all stems from you. It all comes from you, and nobody's going to care about your project nearly the way you do. I wish it were so, like what you were just saying, like that ideal world where like you could just focus on the creative. But if that were the case, every creative would just be like, all right, I'm just going to be super creative and this is just going to fly. And my agent, Max, he told me early on when I started working with him, he's like, you got to remember you're a CEO. He's like, you're an artist, but you're also a CEO. You're a CEO of Trivecta Music. My photographer / tour manager has me in his phone as a CEO Sam. And this stuff reminds me, I got to wake up and every day I got to be the one who thinks like, hey, where are we here with this? What are we doing with this? What are we doing with that? Because otherwise somebody else will do that, Yeah.
I really love that though. That is just that CEO mindset. Like, you got to wake up and really like run the business and
you do.
And your life. What does your day-to-day look like for that?
Depends on what I'm doing at the time. I can tell you it starts when I wake up, and ends when I go to sleep. That's the constant. Today was actually the first time in so long where I woke up and was like, oh my God, I don't have something immediate that I need to be like focusing on working on. I had to get a post up for the weekend and sort of start talking social media plan for the week for all the stuff we did this weekend, and to continue pushing album songs. But I did the whole album. I mean, the album, I woke up every day for a year and a half if I wasn't on the road, and I would just work. I would just go to studio. I would go to the gym and come back to the studio, work more. I would work on the social media stuff. I would work on the business stuff. I would take notes. I would do blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. Then when I had the album in, like I said earlier, I got in the full sort of almost all marketing business mode kind of side of things. And then, but I'm doing all that while playing shows almost every weekend. The zoomed out is usually weekends or shows, and weekdays are wake up and drink out of a fire hose. Just like, here's everything I'm supposed to be doing. Here's everything I need to be doing. Let me just, and do it all. It's crazy because once I, finished the album and once I was in that marketing space, then I was like, okay, shit, now I got to focus on rolling out the album. And now I got to focus on the tour and building my live show, because I only had a couple weeks to get that together, because a whole new album to get out and into the set, plus all the other music I've done over the years. That kind of goes back to doing all that has to have your fingerprints on it. Like you said, if you have a whole team doing all that stuff for you, it's not going to have your fingerprints on it. It's all going to be generic, whatever some guys decide to do. And then as soon as the tour started last weekend, it was like, oh my God, just finished. Time to get on the road. And then I get back from tour and it's like, oh my God, first festival since the album is up.
Yeah.
So now I need to shorten my tour set by 35 minutes and come up with a festival version. So I'd spend all week on that, working on that with my VJ. So she would be ready for that. And that was every single day last week. And I just got home late last night and I woke up this morning and I was like, oh my God, I have no shows this weekend. The set is done. The festival set is done. The album's out. We just got to promote and I'm kind of okay.
Yeah.
So the day-to-day is always changing.
Yeah. It sounds like music is pretty 24/7 for you.
Yeah.
Do you have stuff outside of music that you're creating space for in your life?
I need to do a better job of that. The gym is a good one, and my gym schedule isn't as good as it was right now. Sometimes I'm only doing once or twice a week, but that helps a lot, and I'm always better. I can tell that. I can see. I see that physique in the screen.
It's my mental health. It's my therapy, bro. It's straight up. I haven't gone to the gym. I guess I went Saturday, but even just not going today, I didn't go today, and I've just been in a funky ass fucking mood all day. I'm just like, no, dude, I need it for my mental clarity. It really is. Like, it's important.
It's huge. You're right. Cooking was a big one for a while, but I kind of got out of that. Now it sort of fell out of rhythm with that. I was posting online. I was posting stories cooking. That was like a really big one for me. I should get back into that. But dude, I honestly, man, I got to do a better job of finding more balance these days.
Yeah. I had West End on here a little while ago and we had a good conversation about that. Just about the importance of having, I don't know, just non-music stuff, like real life stuff.
Are there any common kind of things you're seeing other artists do that seem to be good balancing activities for them?
Yeah, just getting outside as a music producer. If I call you guys the production gremlins, there's dude, just in the studio all day, like never seeing sunshine at all. So actually, right before we got on, before we were going to connect, I did what I call a hot boy walk, and I just go outside. I'll do like a 15-20 minute walk. Take your shirt off, get some sunshine. I just put on some of your tracks just to listen to it. Like I told you, I didn't exercise today, so I was in a little funky energy, and I was I can't be bringing funky energy into this fucking podcast.
Yeah,
so
no way.
I'm gonna go do a hot boy walk and shift the energy, and so that's just one simple little thing. But I think any kind of outdoor activities are always going to be good. I think Weston was saying he just plays pickleball or tennis or some shit like that, but just like something to get out and do that. I think the other big one is also like having non-producer friends. That's a big one. I've a lot of my friends and clients have talked about, just like, it's so rad to have all the producer homies, but it's also, we just end up just still talking about music all the time and you're still just nerding out. So to have like a place and a community or a group of friends that you can go to where you actually really shut that part of your brain off for a little bit, I think is important.
Yeah, I think if I did the hot boy walk, I would have people will be calling the cops on me. I got to get rid of a little more stubborn.
That's a big part of it. That's a big part of it is like actually having no fucking shame, or like regardless of like where you're at, you know. Like I remember seeing this one girl. She's like, "Can girls do it too?" I was like, "Dude," she had her fucking sports bra, and it was like a week of her preparing herself, and she like sent me a video. She's like, "I finally fucking did it." Yeah, she's like, "I don't care." It was like a breakthrough for her because she's just like getting over the fear of judgment. So it's beautiful.
I want to get back, bro. I used to love playing basketball. I want to get back into that.
There we go.
To the pickleball point. That would be great. And as far as the friends thing, I'm so blessed in that I have a great network of artist buddies that I talk to every day. Interestingly enough, you'd be surprised how little music we talk about sometimes. And it's funny because it's all most of us really think about most of the time. But when we're all growing out, we're like very rarely, you know, we just catch up a little bit about it, but then it's just like about other shit.
Is Jason Ross one of the dudes in that crew?
One of my best friends, and he's right in there.
Yeah, that's the homie also. He mentioned that as well. I think he mentioned having a good circle with like
Did you have him on recently?
He was on just a while back, but we had known each other from LA from like probably like literally 10 years ago.
Oh, so sick, dude. I can see that. I can see this in your energy.
Yeah.
You guys could get along.
Yeah. He's a good. He's
the best.
So let's bring it back to anyone out there that's listening that is an artist that's on this journey, that's coming up in the game. Like, what kind of advice would you give them?
Man, persistence is a big one. I mean, the thing I was saying earlier, but I think we touched on that already, about keeping your eye on your own influences and creating your own sort of sound, and remembering that it has to all come from you at the end of the day creatively. But I think aside from that, persistence and consistency are really key. I've definitely done well over my 10,000 hours on this. It's like, you know, just doing and doing and doing and doing. And you can do all the right things and you can check all the boxes. You can make great music, make great social posts, make good friends in the industry, get an agent. You can do all this and still not get results you're happy with. Sometimes it takes just doing all of those things over and over and over and over again. So I think consistency is a huge one. And also, to some extent, you know, maintaining some sort of semblance of stoicism, not getting too high. I don't know if I used the right word there, but like not too high, not too low, trying to, you know, celebrate your highs. Don't get too down when you're in the pits. And when you do, talk to some buddies about it and try to make sure you can have a cruising altitude.
Oh, bro. Yeah, I think you just nailed that, especially that talking to people when things get low part, you know?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's literally like just such a huge part of my life is getting to be the person that people talk to when they're, awesome, you know, I'm on the roller coaster. That's the thing, dude, is I'm finally learning that lesson. I'm like, I've always been the rock and I've been the support, but now I'm finally learning how to just reach out when things aren't going good. And it takes vulnerability and it takes honesty, but fuck, it's a superpower. And also seeing the consequences of if you don't, and you're just white knuckling fucking life, holding onto the steering wheel as hard as you can, trying to push, and you're just carrying all of this heavy baggage with you. Like, it's gonna catch up with you, and you're gonna fucking crack, and you're gonna spiral out. You know?
Yeah, dude, it'll weigh you down. And I can't tell you how many times my group of buddies, the same group that Jason was talking about, that same group has just talked me out of being just in such like a crappy headspace about everything. And I can tell when it's happening, and I'll jump in and I'll just send a whole novel to the group chat, you know, and somebody will start poking and asking questions and start saying the right things and just talking through. And I can't tell you how many times that's really just helped turn my mindset around.
Yeah. It's having those buddies, having that circle, having that community, and then also having the courage to be real and be vulnerable.
Not being afraid to ruin the vibe.
Yeah, when someone asks you like how you're doing, you're, oh, I'm good, I'm fine. It's like, no,
or
you're not.
or you just hit the unsolicited, all right, boys, I got a vent. Boom.
Yeah, totally. You know? Yeah, we need that, man. That's great. Now, I mean, I guess we're kind of answering that question here, leaning on other people for support.
Yeah.
But we were talking about how consistency and persistence is important. And like you said, so when you're going and you're working and sometimes still not seeing the results, needing to just keep going and dig even deeper, how do you push yourself through those moments?
Sometimes you almost don't. Sometimes you just have enough things on the books that just simply putting one foot in front of the other and trudging through things will just eventually kind of happen to put you in a little bit of a better space. Sometimes it's about just marching forward, even if you don't know how to dig yourself out. You just gotta, if you're not happy with how things are going, you just gotta kind of just keep going. And other times you got to figure out when it's a situation that you want to rectify, and whether that means telling people about things you aren't happy about and seeing what you can do to figure it out. Sometimes it takes venting to people. I can't tell you how many times I've vented to my team, and said, hey, like, I feel like we need to be doing a better job of this. I'm not happy with how we're looking with this. If your team is good and if they're there for you, they'll listen and they'll hear you out. But it's hard to do that by yourself sometimes. It's, you got to, like we were saying earlier, talk to other people about it. But yeah, sometimes, like I said, it's about pushing when you don't even want to push, not waiting for motivation. Just being like, hey, things aren't going the way I want right now, but I'm just going to keep going anyway, and even if you don't have the motivations, sometimes you got to have those days where it's like, you know what, actually, I don't have it. I don't have it today. And as long as you avoid getting in too much of a rut for too long, it's good to take a 0 day and be like, you know what, I'm going to sit on my ass today. Sometimes.
Oh, for sure, dude. I had a couple of those days like a week ago. I was like, right? It was more like a week. I was like, this week, I don't think I'm going to do that much. I think I'm just going to fucking chill.
Dude, it's like that. It's like that movie Office Space when he like stops just giving a shit. Sometimes you got to do that. You really do.
Yeah. We're not machines, man. We forget that, it's like even just hearing this, like it is a pretty 24/7 kind of nonstop grind, especially like when things are happening and you're like, now I'm touring and I got a fucking album coming out. It's like we're creating almost a lifestyle that requires us to be a machine.
Yeah.
When no matter what we do, we're never going to be machines. We're always still going to be human, and it's important that we take care of our, little human selves sometimes.
It is, man. There are periods when I was finishing the album as well as playing shows, as well as like everything that comes with all that. And I was also like going out doing photo shoots for the album, filming content for the album. And at the same time, I was so in my head about the album. I had spent so long on it, and it was my biggest focus in the world, but nobody had heard it. And I believed in it, but that weird disconnect you get when you believe in it, but you're so sick of it because you've heard it so much. And then your brain convinces you it sucks, but it doesn't, because we learned how to sort of negotiate that minefield, but still it's only in your head and it's all you live with every day. And then you're also going out filming content for it. You're like, oh my God, are people even going to like it? And then you go out for a couple of days and you do a few shows, and then a day of content shooting is tacked to the end of that show run, and you get back for 2 days, and then like, hang on, this song is due, and it's like, oh my God, the kick drum sucks. And it's like, what am I going to do? Am I going to switch the kick drum at the end? And then you do it and it sounds worse, and then it's due, and then you have a show the next day, and then there's 11 more songs to finish. And that goes on for a year straight. And it's just like every day. And it's like any day that you lose, you're like, hang on, I know that at the end, I don't have as much time as I need to do all this by the deadline. So it's like, all right, well, every day that I lose is, like, I'm just going to be further from where I want to be when this all thing has to turn in. So you just in a space where it's like you become a machine. And to your point, you got to remember, like, hang on. I can't do this all the time. You need to find a way to kind of chill out a little bit.
Yeah, man. So when are you planning your vacation for yourself?
It's so funny.
When is that coming?
Max Freeman, who is a absolute goat of an agent out in LA too. He's a super agent. He's the man. Right?
Definitely know of him. We're not like homies, but I tell him I want to get him on the podcast. Pass it along. I'll get him on.
I will. He's great at talking about this stuff. I will, actually. He's not only a great agent as far as getting shows and the things that an agent does, but he believes in the project and makes me feel believed in, despite the fact he has 20 some clients or whatever. And I always have the time of day from him. He hit me up the other day and he goes, Sam, this period of time after the tour is over, he goes, I'm not booking shows for a few weeks. He goes, unless we get something really good that we really, really want to do. He goes, I refreshed the touring grid in our little, calendar, and it's just a couple weeks of red, and he's just like, damn, he's like, you need an end date. You need something, when this thing is over. And he says, make no mistake. Oh yeah. You're going to get driven into the ground. I'm going to drive you into the ground before that. But he's like, you're not going to do it yourself. So I need you to do it for me. He's like, I'm going to force you to do it. So man. To answer your question, probably like March, mid to late March, early April will probably be.
Yeah. That's the nature of the game. So how do you stay balanced in the meantime?
I haven't been. That's not the pretty answer. This week I will. This week I'll do a better job because, like I said, this is the first week where I don't have like an immediate pressing thing.
Yeah. All right. Hot boy. Well, here's my thing then. 20-minute hot boy walk at least once a day. Keep it simple.
Okay.
Once a day. Put your headphones on. Put on some happy music. Walk around. I don't know if it's sunny out where you are. If it's sunny, you got to pop the top, get some sunshine, get some vitamin-D.
Yeah, okay. I live in a beautiful spot for that here in Channelside in Tampa. So, okay, perfect. I'll take you up on that.
Do it, bro. You will not regret it.
It's going to be folk metal, Viking metal. It's not going to be very happy music, but that's...
Oh, hell yeah.
But yeah, we'll be going.
Okay, that was the other question I was going to ask earlier was I did see you and Seven Lions playing this like Viking metal drinking song, and you were involved in that song in some way. I need to know the story behind this because that sounds fucking epic.
This will be perhaps the most polarizing song I've put out. It will be one of the most polarizing songs I know Jeff's put out in a while. Jeff put me on early in the pandemic to a band called Ensiferum. They are I think probably the world's biggest folk metal band. They're out of Finland, and it's all song. I mean, their last song, their previous album was all songs of the sea. They have a song called "Rum Women Victory." It's like, very much stuff that makes me want to. And I love, obviously, I love like folk influence anything, and their stuff is all folklore driven, Norse mythology kind of stuff, and so it's very immersive. Jeff put me onto them in the beginning of the pandemic, and they have been my most listened to act since that day. I'm upset. I listen to them all the time. Jeff and I have wanted to for years make a drinking song. We both share a similar love for a lot of that stuff, a lot of like similar love for, they all get an Irish pub, get a drink, a mug with a handle, beer slashing, saying, So I'm always trying to make stuff like that. And we've always talked about making stuff like that. And it's always a little too cheesy. It's never quite right. And one day I made a demo and I sent it to him. I was like, dog, what do you think of this? Should we like try to do this? And he goes, yeah, like let's run it. And I forget which one of us was like, do we try Ensiferum? Do we like see if they could maybe do the vocal on this? And these guys, if you look these guys up, these guys are legit Vikings. I mean, they are full on fucking, they're the real deal. And man, they hit us back and they're like, yo, we love the song. We'd love to. I was like, oh, shit. So they sang on the song. And,
sick.
Drink till the dawn arise. This song is a really good artistic exercise that I would say that anybody listening to the podcast could probably take something from, because I've learned a lot from it, is you have to keep your eye on the ball. I love the song so much. Jeff loves the song so much. And when we play the song, a lot of the crowd loves the song so much, but there are always people, and you can't see them because they're in between the people jumping up and down, but I'll read comments online and I'll see things.
Yeah.
I remember somebody said something online. I forget where I saw it, but somebody else, I was like tagged in like a thread, and somebody said like, I saw Trivecta jumping up and down doing this pirate song. I think he referred to it as the cringiest thing he'd ever seen in his life. And I was like, and at first that like stung. Then I remember I was like, hang on, this is like the greatest lesson in following the muse, because somebody has to be brave enough to do it. And there are so many fans who are like, I need this song every day of my life. Where is it? Give it to me. And it's very polarizing. There aren't a lot of people who are like, it's all right. There are people who are like, this is incredible. And there are people who are like, this sucks. But I believe in it, and I can't make the song and play it if I don't believe in it. The same with Jeff. And I think it's a really good exercise in just being artistically brave, and like the Rick Rubin mindset. In some cases, maybe the audience does come last. And if you're just following your gut, doing what you like, people who like that as well will find you. And, it won't be for everybody. And when I play it in the set, if you don't like it, that's your piss break for 3 minutes, and then you come back.
Dude, I love that. I mean, first off, I will say I'm a big metalhead, and Amon Amarth, I fucking love. You know what I mean? Some good old Viking metal. So I will be one of those people jumping up and down in the crowd to that song. But it reminds me of Avicii, who is forever will be my number one favorite artist, who came out to Ultra in whatever 2017 or something.
Yeah, it was earlier than that.
Or earlier, with 2013 maybe then. With a fucking country band,
with the country
you
band,
know,
yep.
with like banjos and singers, and half of, you know, probably more than half of the audience, like literally like left. They were
Yep.
just like, what the fuck is this? And then, you know, a month later, Wake Me Up is like the #1 most played song on Spotify ever.
Yep.
Right. And so it is, I think, an artist's role to take risks and to push the boundaries. And if you're never polarizing anybody ever, you're probably just painting within the lines way too much, you know? So I love to see you doing that. And Sullivan King's a great example of that as well. I used to teach at Icon Collective. He was a student of mine. I managed him very, very early on in his career as well. And it was like, it was cool. It was like, he was trying to be like Swedish House Mafia in the beginning. He was like making like Big Room House and shit. And then one day we were just like, dude, like you've been playing the guitar like your whole life. Like, why don't you fucking bring your guitar into it? And he just like kind of took that chance of like, what if I just fuck around and found out, you know, what if I just like started playing some metal on top of this, you know, bass music shit? And it was like, cool. You know, he just completely like opened up the doors. Yeah. So you never know. You never know. You got to take those risks, man.
Man, it's such an important way of thinking. And in a similar lane, I come from a jam band background, and that couldn't be much further from melodic bass music. But once I started working the guitar into the live set, I realized most of my strengths playing in the jam band were from moments where it wasn't just a quick rock star guitar solo like I do in the Trivecta sets, but really kind of these songs that the band would do would be these extended improvisational sections. I mean, it might be 15 minutes where before the song came back for air for lyrics again. And it wasn't check Sam out playing the guitar. It was the guitar is the lead instrument that's almost your tour guide, taking you through the journey that the music is going on, you know? And there are artists, I know Pretty Lights has dabbled with that when he returned and whatnot, but there are not many artists in the, I don't know, I guess bigger standard EDM space that I think are playing a live instrument and taking the crowd on a extended solo journey kind of thing like that. Because again, I think it's another place where, like you said earlier, taste and skill set combine. And for me, the big point of the skill set is knowing how to use the guitar to sort of just tell a story that doesn't rush to the peak. But when you get there, you're like, holy shit, how did we get here? This is so cool. And so I started doing it. And so this tour, I've started to work that in. This was another, it was like like you're just talking about Keaton. It was like a scary but bold, let's see what happens. And I had like a 3+ minute solo towards the end of my set, and it starts way down. It takes it all the way down, like energetically. And I have the volume knob on 1, and I'm doing very gentle. And I knew, I was like, you know, I believe in this, and I'm going to keep the energy down for like 2 minutes, and it's going to be a whole thing before it even gets up there, and then bringing it back home. And I think this is going to work. And it's right now it's 3 shows in, it's my favorite moment of the night. So to your point, it's about doing that, being like, you know, I take risks. Same with the Ed Ferrum song, you know, it's just, but believe.
Yeah, I keep adding to this little, what's becoming almost like a little checklist of these, like what I'm calling these kind of like headliner mindset qualities, you know? And
what do you got?
And I think that one just came up recently as well, where it's like just being an innovator, you know, I think being a headliner, and what this sort of definition that I'm coming up with is it's like being at the forefront of the wave, being the person that is an innovator, that's trying new things, that's pushing boundaries. Because if not, your other option is like, well, I'm just going to do what's already being done. Maybe I'm going to do it a little bit differently, but I'm just going to kind of like fit myself into the box that already exists. In which case, like, well, you're never really going to be at the top. You know, you're always going to be 1 or 2 steps behind. And so I think that is just a quality and a characteristic of this true kind of headliner definition, is just being an innovator and being courageous to try new things and see what happens and see what works.
And I think there probably is a space for, it's not the space I would recommend, and it's not the space I ever want to be, but I think there is a small lane for people who do want to be headliners and don't want to innovate or think like that. I think it's hard to do, but I think it's more reserved for the type who's like, we're just going to schmooze our way up, have a big financial backing maybe, and just make big collabs with other relevant artists and know the talent buyers and stuff like that. And I won't say names, but you'll see them at festivals, you know, and they're always there.
Oh, for sure.
And it's always the same kind of show they're doing each time. And it's never taking any risks. But it goes well for them. It's just, You have to be really lucky, and you have to. A lot of them aren't even artists, so they're probably not listening to the podcast. You know, they're
I'm not
probably
worried
like
about them.
they're probably more worried about like their portfolio and whatnot. You know.
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, I had a good episode with Mac J a little while back where, you know, he was saying, yeah, I produce for a bunch of these fucking dudes.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they're just the reality. It's a product that's being brought to the marketplace, and some people aren't even making their own shit, and it's always been that way, you know. Yeah. But Rick Rubin is like my dream guest. I want like I'm really wanting to just preach the message of tapping into your heart and soul and your highest frequency of authenticity, and like bring that fucking gift that only you can bring out of the 8 billion people in the world. Like, you are the only Sam Trivecta that can make what you can make. So like, why go chase what everybody else is doing? You know, like, take that inward journey and pull from the fucking depths of your soul whatever's in there and share that shit with the world. And don't worry about if people like it or not, you know. Really make it more about like your actual expression and almost like your duty to yourself to bring that art forward, you know.
Oh my God, for sure. You keep your eye on that, and people, and that's how you'll make something that people will be drawn to. I even remember it. The best sort of microcosm of that was when I was playing in the jam band, and we would get really locked in. And when I tuned out the crowd and I was just listening to the guys around me, and we're having a conversation with the instruments, we would get what we call it, where you would just all be locked in, and it would only last for a matter of seconds, you know. But and you'd have it, and there's nothing like it. And I don't quite get it anymore now that I'm not playing in an improvisational band. But I remember what it felt like, and I remember how it goes. And the moment I'd look up and like see the crowd and be like, "Is that working? You want some more of that?" Suddenly the mindset totally changes. And, So and it's just what you're saying. Like, that's it, right? Like,
dude. I'm so glad you bring that up, because I was in a band in high school many years ago, and that's how we would warm up, is we would just jam. I played the drums, and so we would just like, I just throw a beat down, someone fucking bass player would throw the guitar player, the bass player would start fucking around. And then it's like, and then there would be that moment where it would just, some shit would click. It was like the muse would visit. And I remember even having almost like an out of body experience of like, I'm like watching us do this from like the corner of the room. And it was like a spiritual experience of four people's energies coming together. So I can imagine, you know, you don't really, you, as a producer, just on your laptop, you know, you can tap into flow, but it's different when you're tapping into other people on an improvised kind of vibe. And I just the other night got that, a little taste of that with like, I just went to my buddy's house and we were playing the guitar, and it was like, he was playing a riff, and then I was just kind of matching it until eventually the little Tetris pieces fit together, and it just clicked. And like, we found that riff, and I was just like, yo, like, just hold that. Like, let's just play that for 10 minutes straight, because it feels so fucking good, dude. It's I finally got to taste a little bit of that recently. I wish every, you know, artist and producer could really tap into that, because it's like, you don't get it when you're just like dragging samples into Ableton, you know. It's not the same.
You don't, man. You don't.
Yeah.
I'm glad you got that, man. I'm glad. That's great.
Me too. Yeah, definitely inspired me. But man, it's so great to connect with you. You're so rad. I really appreciate you coming on, and glad we were able to make this happen. But dude, you are killing it. I think, are you coming to Austin on your tour?
Yeah. Is it Concourse Project? Is that a venue?
The Concourse, that's the spot. Yes, sir. All right, I'm gonna have to come out and catch you. I want to see this 3-minute guitar solo.
Hey, come on, man. It's on me. Come on through. We got you.
Fuck yeah. Hell yeah, brother. Man. Well, thanks for making the time to come through, bro.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.